Hello everyone, welcome to RockShire Gaming. My name is Eric. Today we're going to finish our series on the top 40 games in my collection that we have played 2023 edition. This has been pretty fun to go through and revisit a lot of new games, but more so a lot of old games that I have had for probably over a decade and a half, and just kind of getting to talk about them again and being able to kind of, you know, in my own head to relive some of those gaming moments that have defined me as a board gamer has been pretty cool. So we're going to go ahead and start off this list of games, again going through the 10 through 1 part of our video with a couple of things that we have talked about. Again, this is a list of my top 10. If your video, or your, I'm sorry, not your video, you can do a video if you want, a game that I mentioned lower on this list or in the past 3 episodes you feel should be higher, let me know about that in the comments. Again, this is kind of a subjective list. I did have to put a lot of these games in order in some way. But again, like, I've easily gone through, I could easily go through and like change things depending on the day, depending on my mood, anything like that. When we do this list in 2024, it will look a lot different because, you know what, I'll probably have actually played some of these games behind me that we've received in 2023 that I just haven't been able to either play or play to the level that I felt confident to put them on this list. So again, keep all those things in mind. Also, I know that there's some games that I've talked about in previous episodes and some games that we are definitely going to be talking about today that are older. One game in particular I have had for probably over 20 years in one regard. So one of the things I would like for you guys to do, if you would like to comment below on this video, is I know that there are some games that probably do some of these games better, meaning that something else has come along that takes a lot of the core mechanics of a game that I've already talked about and I'm going to talk about and does it better. So any gaming suggestions like that, please put those down below. Things I should be on the lookout for, those kind of things, and see if we can, you know, knock some of these other games out of the top 10 list. I think that is all we have right now, so let's go ahead and get down into the countdown. Number 10 on the list is going to be a slightly newer game in the collection. By slightly newer, I mean I'm pretty sure I ordered it about 6 years ago and got it about 5 years ago from Kickstarter. This game also has the distinction for truly being the first game that I backed on Kickstarter, and that is going to be Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid. I do just have the Gold Ranger expansion here in front of me because, frankly, if I took that big giant box off the wall, you guys would have known that this was on the countdown somewhere. So yeah, this was the first game I backed on Kickstarter. I'm pretty sure my choice was this or Starcadia Quest when I was first looking into it, and seeing as how I had no necessary connection to that game, and I have been a Power Ranger fan since the show started in 1993. I was 10 years old at the time. Yeah, this was a no-brainer for me. I very much enjoy the combat system. I like how the monsters work. I like the unique deployment system with the foot soldier characters, the putty patrollers, all that sort of thing. I mean, the unique now, they threw it into, pretty sure they threw all that stuff into the G.I. Joe game, but that's neither here nor there. But regardless, like I said, the combat system, I like the diversity with even just the 5 core rangers that come in the main box. They all have different roles and whatnot to do. Even the box itself does come with a mix of 4 different monsters with 1 boss. You're not going to play all 4 of those monsters in one game. You can kind of mix and match them. Again, it is another game that is going to rely heavily on getting some of the expansion content. They do have a wide range of expansion content for the game between different ranger packs, different villain packs, all those sort of things. I don't think, unlike other games that we will be talking about, a lot of the content for this game is not necessarily, even though there's a ton of it at this point, I don't think any of it is necessarily stuck behind a Kickstarter paywall any longer. I think most of it maybe with the exception of the Kickstarter exclusive box, although I think they do sell that at times. But I believe for the most part, most of the content for this game is available through Renegade directly. Renegade Games, who makes the Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid game. Like I said, majority of the game you can get from Renegade or your friendly local game shop at this point, so you're not having to necessarily hunt down exorbitant prices for certain things. But anyway, like I said, combat system pretty solid. The gameplay is pretty cool. Only thing that doesn't put this game higher as far as other cooperative games that I have is that depending on how you do combat, especially if not all of the players, depending on if you're playing up to like a 5-player game or a 6-player game in some cases, if you do have the content for that, if you are not participating in a battle, there's really not much for you to do unless you have some kind of a support card that allows you to play outside of a battle you're not in. So there is a little bit of downtime for players who are not actively in a battle, unlike other cooperative games where everyone's pretty much in it the whole time. But with that one flaw basically out of the way as far as this discussion, I am ranking Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid as my number 10 game in my collection. Before we get into our number 9 game, I do want to put a slight disclaimer out there that numbers 9, 8, 7, and 6 are going to be on the older side. I never said that this list was the definitive 2023 games of 2023 of all time. This is going to be the top games in my collection. So these games are going to be on the older side, at least 10 plus years old in some of these cases. Some of these do have a newer edition that is out. I do have, in most of the cases, a first edition version of the game. So the game I have is going to be different than the game you're going to probably see in the stores. So just keep that in mind as we go through them. Again, not negating the greatness of the game or not in that case. Just want to put that disclaimer out there that we are going to be talking about some older games, hence why I also said on before that if you know of something that would probably take the place of some of these games, let me know down below. So with that disclaimer out of the way, the number 9 game on our list is going to be Gloom, another game from Atlas Games. This is another kind of storytelling game. You are going to basically be in control of a family of various characters, and your goal is to basically give your family the worst day ever. The gameplay on this is pretty cool. It's basically fully a card game, but the cards are all transparent cards with little numbers on circles on one side. As you play cards on your family members, you will be covering up point symbols and whatnot. The point of the game is to give everybody in your family a terrible day, like I said, basically by giving them negative points and eventually killing off your family members. The game ends when one player's entire family is all dead, and then you basically add up the scores of all the dead family members. If I'm getting all that right, it has been a minute since I played. But the main reason why I picked this and some other games on here, not necessarily for nostalgia, I just have a lot of fun playing them. But this one definitely is, like I said in a video before about Once Upon a Time, this is definitely a pretty fun storytelling game, because as you're playing these cards on your family members, it's very fun and encouraged to basically tell a story about how the family members are getting into the various predicaments that you are essentially putting them through. And again, if you get a group of players at your table who are very into storytelling and can tell elaborate things and also throw a little bit of comedy in there, then you're going to have a pretty good time. I know Gloom at least went into a second edition at one point, and they actually released a new version of the game called Gloomier. I backed it on Kickstarter. That's where I have this storage box from, because the storage box basically holds Gloomier as well as all the various editions of Gloom and its expansion packs and its other iterations. So with all that said, my number 9 pick is going to be Gloom. Our number 8 game is going to be from my list of top 5 most memorable or most meaningful games. That's the name I was trying to think of this entire time. Top 5 most meaningful games. It is one of the first board games my wife and I did pick out together, and it is a big mainstay in our collection. We've had a lot of friends who have enjoyed it, a lot of friends who have contributed to the collection of it over the years, and that is going to be Munchkin from Steve Jackson Games. This is the box for the original deluxe edition. A lot of their games, like the different Moops games and some other stuff, all come in this deluxe size box with game board and everything like that. But this is the first deluxe edition. This is actually, if I remember correctly, this box is from the first edition, first printing of the deluxe edition from 2011. So I've had this one for over 12 and a half years, it looks like. That's a long time for a game. But anyway, this is going to be Munchkin. This is a game where you have a Munchkin, you walk around the board, or you don't even walk around the board. You draw cards, kick down doors, fight monsters, get treasure, level up. Your goal is to get to level 10 before anybody else by any means necessary. You can play cards against other people to either enhance the other players, you can enhance the monsters, you can throw additional monsters at players during times. It is a fun time for everyone. We definitely enjoy this over here amongst our group of friends and our main gaming group. Haven't played it on the channel. If that is something that you would be interested in seeing, we would love to do it. Probably won't throw all the expansions in at first to do that, because there are a ton of cards in the game and it would just be chaos, especially if we mixed everything up in a big giant blender game. That would be fun for me, at least. I don't know if it'd be fun for you. But Munchkin, again, one of the top memorable games in my collection, falls into the number 8 game that we have played just because of just how much we played this. This is probably one of the more singularly exclusive games that we played in our collection for a time being. There was a time before I started getting into a lot more board games for a little while that we would basically get a game, our group of friends, we would get a game and basically latch onto it for a while. This game we definitely latched onto during the same time that we were playing through 4th edition D&D. That's how far back that goes. So basically on a D&D night we would play D&D, might throw a game of this in there. So basically that was the 2 main games we played for quite a while. So number 8 game on the list is going to be Munchkin. Our number 7 game is going to be another game that I have had for quite a while in my collection. Is basically a game that in some ways has replaced Risk as a go-to area control game for me, and that is going to be Small World from Days of Wonder. Quite a few Days of Wonder games I'm realizing on this list in total, but this is going to be a game where you basically have a choice of a bunch of different race and power combos, different abilities that do different things, different ways of manipulating the board, different ways of using things on the board, different ways of adding things to the board, getting more money, getting more points, all those sorts of things. Though this game does have quite a few expansion content at this point. There is the underground version of this. They just recently came out with a World of Warcraft version of it. I wouldn't necessarily, though I have a lot of the early content for the game, I have basically most all the races and powers, all that content, some of the newer boards and stuff like that I don't really necessarily have. But this is probably one of those games where I definitely wouldn't necessarily say that extra content is necessary. There is a lot going on here, especially when you have the different race and power combos. The fact that every game those combos change just makes the game different every time that you play it. And as I said, this is kind of a substitute in a way for Risk, and the fact that it is area control. You are attacking other players as you go, but it's more of like, instead of dice rolls, it's more of I have more than you, therefore I'm now taking this territory kind of a thing. You do have a dice roll if you don't have enough forces to do what you need to do, and if you roll a number for what you need, then you get the territory. If you don't, then you don't get the territory. That's just the way it is. And because of the whole decline system in the game, where if you basically run out of enough minions to do what you need to do, you can put your race in decline. You can go through quite a few race and class or power combinations throughout the game, so you're not just stuck with one group the entire time. So again, this does have pretty interesting gameplay to it. We have a lot of fun. I like also the fact that there are actually 2 double-sided boards in the main box, or in the main 2 core boxes, so that way if you're just playing with 2 players, you have a 2-player board. If you have 3 players, you have a 3-player board, 5-player board, a 6-player board, or no, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this box. You can get a 6-player board as well. There's also other boards that you can get. There was the I think there's a Sky Island board, if I'm not mistaken. There at one point was a modular board that you can get. So a lot of different things that you can get for the game. But again, this one in my mind doesn't necessarily require you to have a ton of expansion content, which is a plus for me. So in this spot right here, we do have Small World. Number 6 is going to be a game that came from the same-ish time frame from that last span of games we just talked about, at least for the next few minutes. It is a game that I have played multiple games of. They have come out with a new edition of the game. I haven't found the necessity to go out and buy it. Let me know down below if I need to go out and buy it. But the number 6 game on our list is going to be King of Tokyo. This game is simplistic in its design. It essentially is Yahtzee with, you know, extra steps. It is Yahtzee with giant monster battles thrown into it. You're basically rolling your dice. You are either trying to claw your enemy, heal yourself, gain more energy for buying special cards, or you're just trying to get enough victory points to win at the end of the game. So there's a couple of different ways, 2 different ways to basically play the game. Either kill everything in your path or earn enough points for victory. There's a bunch of different ways of earning points. Besides rolling the dice, you can make sure you are the one that is in Tokyo during the game and earn points through that method. Some other cards in the game will also have different ways of getting points. So there's a few different paths to victory that you can do in this game. Like I said, this is, though, my first edition version of the game. I know there is a new edition of the game. Everything I have for this is first edition. There's also King of New York, which does add in new monsters and adds in also buildings and some other stuff in there. I have very little experience with King of New York. This is why this this spot is going more to King of Tokyo, but it's going over all the different King games. I know there's also Monster Island that's out. I have no experience with that one whatsoever, so we're not going to talk about that one today. But number 6 game on the list is going to be King of Tokyo. So the number 5 game on this list is a game that until 28 minutes ago, as far as my recording time goes, was higher up on the list. I had it up in the number 3 spot and then thought about it a little more and thought, you know, the game is a little too new, though I do know that this is in my top 10 because it is a game that I do play quite often. I talk about quite often, not only with the guys that we play it with, but other people that I know that also have the game. Like I said, it's just a game that I know is in my top 10 somewhere. I bumped it down to number 5 once I get through some more of the content for it. That, again, as I've said before, may change where its positioning goes. But number 5 on the list is going to be Marvel Zombies. I do have the Heroes Resistance version sitting here because that is the version that we have played the most here on the channel. I do finally have the rest of the game here at the house, which you all know because you've all seen the unboxing video, haven't you? Anyway, so I'm mainly going to be talking about in this one, well, you can talk about both. I haven't played X-Men Resistance yet. Heroes Resistance is basically those rules, just with the mutants and other things with the scenarios. I have played through quite a bit of the zombie mode version, and that is why, because of the fact that you can go from a hero mode to a zombie mode between the different scenarios that all the versions of the game give you, why I separated this one from Zombicide, because I know there's a lot of people who are watching this who are probably thinking, Eric, you talked about Zombicide already in your other video, why are you bringing up Marvel Zombies? To me, the two games are distinct enough, even though basically it's built off the Zombicide system and everything like that. The two games are different enough that I felt like it warranted its own spot on the list. Again, once I am, you know, playing both versions of it, I may combine it all back in, but for now, this is my, you know, higher up on the list for me than regular Zombicide. And if you don't really know exactly what this is, one, I would encourage you to watch our Heroes Resistance gameplays of the game, but essentially you're either doing one of two things. You are either a Marvel hero fighting against zombified Marvel heroes and trying to basically survive getting eaten, or you are a zombie Marvel hero fighting against living Marvel heroes and just trying to eat everybody so that you can continue to survive. So there are, like I said, two different game modes for the game. It is, in my mind, in some ways a simplified slash complex version of Zombicide. The way they do it, you're not having to worry about equipment necessarily. You're not having to worry about getting like special weapons and whatnot. You basically have all of your attacks already. You can acquire bystanders in both versions of the game, which do give you a boost or a boon. You can get heroic traits that give you a little bit of boon, but it's not the same as like having to like constantly go into buildings and search and stuff like that. It's different enough to where, like I said, it is I can put them in distinctly into their own two categories. But like I said, at the moment, this game is high up in the top 10 for me, hitting the number 5 spot. With a little bit more playthrough, it might go down, it might go up, it might replace other games in the top 10. Who knows? I don't yet. So that is going to be our number 5 game on the list, Marvel Zombies. Number 4 on the list is going to surprise people with the fact that it beat out Marvel Zombies in my mind, but again, nostalgia slightly goes in there. Even though nostalgia for, you know, years of growing up with Marvel heroes is strong, but this one is just more of nostalgia just for how much enjoyment I have gotten out of the game, and that is going to be my first edition copy of Castle Panic. This is the Panic at the Castle, essentially. You have a castle with walls surrounding it. In the middle of the board, you have ogres, orcs, and goblins coming in to attack you. It is basically a cooperative tower defense game. And you will notice that a lot of my games that are in this top 40, especially in the top half, are going to be cooperative games, because that is, at the moment, my jam right now. It is the top game type that I like. I like being able to play with friends and attempt to basically beat the game itself, and instead of necessarily, you know, beating or being beaten by other people necessarily. I like working together with people. But this is a fun game. This is actually all the content except for the very last expansion pack that came out after the second edition came out. The I don't remember the name of the expansion, but this has the other 3 main expansions in my box. I got rid of all the smaller boxes, threw everything in here. It is heavy and chock full of stuff. This game does have a second edition that is out with all new artwork. The gameplay, as far as I know, is exactly the same, but it does have all new artwork between the cards, the pieces, all that stuff is redesigned. They did have a Kickstarter recently that had a basically like a 3D mode or 3D version where every monster had a miniature. I decided not to get that just because of cost at the time. I would have loved to have actually, more so than the miniature version, I would have loved to have gotten the all wood version of it, just so I can replace essentially the cardboard tokens that are in this one. But alas, didn't do that either. But like I said, this game has been a top play for my group for a while. This is also one of those games that, and I've actually done it recently with a few people, unfortunately not realizing that one of them was colorblind and couldn't see half of what was going on the board. But this is one of those, for me, it is a gateway game. This is a game that I will, if I have people over who are not big into board gaming, I will grab this game and everyone will have a fun time with it. Everyone enjoys it. I like it a lot. So anyway, that is going to be our number 4 pick, is going to be Castle Panic. Number 3 on the list is going to be a game that is probably fueled by nostalgia as far as where its placement goes. This is a game that my college friends and I played quite often. For a while, it was the main game, again, that we played all the time. This copy I have, I'm going to show you, is not even the original copy I have. That thing is probably disintegrated at this point. A friend of mine does have it. He was borrowing it. I wouldn't have shown it on here anyway because the box is so sun bleached from being in my car all the time. because that is how often we traveled with it all over the place. But that is going to be the 2210 version of Risk. I'm pretty sure this and Risk Godstorm are also both getting a re-release, I believe next year. If they already haven't come out, I believe they're getting a re-release next year from Renegade Game Studios. Again, Risk 2210. This is, to me, Risk on, on hyperdrive. They added in a lot of content with this one. Not only do you have the normal 42 territories, but you also have a bunch of water colonies that connect the continents in new ways. There is also a separate board for the moon, so that way you can go to the moon if you want to. You do have spaceports that you can build on the board. There is also different commanders that do different things for you that you have. There are cards that do extra different actions and stuff like that during your turn. There is a whole currency system that's kind of tied into the troop deployment system or redeployment system or gathering system in there. So there is a lot going on with this game. Also, it plays in 5 turns. So whereas in normal Risk, you are doing completely the whole world domination thing, you are basically getting it to the point where you are the last person standing on the board, which is fun until you start with 5 players, and then the last 2 players are kind of fighting, one person clearly dominating the other, and everyone else is kind of just like watching or doing their own thing at that point. With this one, you're down to 5 turns, so yes, you may get eliminated on turn 4 or 5, but you're really not going to be out of the game for a long period of time before the winner is declared. And in some cases in our games, basically everybody was on the board by the end. So yeah, that is going to be, for me, Risk 2210 is going to be our number 3 pick. Number 2 on the list is a newer game. It is a game I got this year. It took a while to get here, but it is a game that ironically, not a cooperative game, getting so high, newer on this list, and it is a game that completely took me by surprise on, in my mind, just how cool the system is. It is a deck builder with miniatures thrown in there. It is Robot Quest Arena. I don't know why this game hooked me as much as it did, but even from the first gameplay of playing it, I told my wife this game definitely just shot up into my top 10. The deck building aspect, I like it. The fact that you can get different weapons and different stuff and to do different things is pretty cool. The added cards with the 3 expansion characters, though they're not necessarily needed, are cool as well. And also look at the little anime chibi robots. Like, that is just awesome artwork. The artwork on this game is great. The just everything on this board game is pretty cool. The board itself is good. They are releasing new extra robots for this one, as well as a new larger board. So that's going to be pretty awesome when it comes out. But like I said, the gameplay on this one just took me by surprise, and how simple it can be and how complex it can be all at the same time. So like I said, with how new it is, it theoretically should not be as high as it is, and the fact that it is a newer game is probably also maybe clouding it a little bit with where I have it on the board. It may drop farther next year, but for right now, number 2 on my list is going to be Robot Quest Arena. And number 1 on the list should probably surprise no one. I kept debating on how to knock it down off of number 1, what games I had that would replace it as number 1, and right now with where I am and just like how much fun I have with the game and how much the game itself means to me, as far as the nostalgia of the characters and the connection to the characters, as well as its connection to this channel, there was no other game that I can necessarily put at number 1 at this time, and that is going to be Marvel United. You all knew it was going to be Marvel United. I knew it was going to be Marvel United. I tried to fight that it was Marvel United. but it's Marvel United. Marvel United, game from Simon and Spin Master. Basically, you play as a Marvel hero fighting against various Marvel villains. You play as one Marvel villain at a time. The game itself comes with 3 villains. There are 3 current core boxes for the game, depending on how you want to play your Marvel United. You can play Classic with the Avengers, with 3 villains to fight there. You can play the X-Men one with technically 4 villains to fight in that version, or you can currently play with the Spider-Geddon version, which has, I want to say, 4 villains that you can fight in that game, with the multiverse content coming out. Just with the core boxes available, there is more than enough content in this game to keep you busy for a while. This is one of those games where I can definitely see, especially with the different powers and whatnot, how the game can be enhanced from getting different expansions. My opinion on that is the villains are what make the game. I don't necessarily believe that you need to have all the different heroes, though it is pretty cool, and they all do different things within the confines of the system, but definitely the villains are where it's at. So basically, whatever you can do to acquire more villains for the game is always going to be a positive. You basically in the game have 4 main actions that you can do. You can either punch something to drain its hit points. You can play heroic actions to rescue civilians and to take out most of the threats in the game. You can move around the board chasing after different henchmen and the villain that you were fighting, or you can play wilds that basically allow you to do one of those 3 things I just talked about. Every villain basically has different win conditions, and gameplay is essentially changed with how the villain runs. So like I said, the variety, versatility in this game definitely shoots it up to #1 in my book. Again, there are probably other games that are up on the wall right now that would easily knock Marvel United off the list, but for right now, for how I've been playing my board games, for my taste and whatnot, Marvel United takes the #1 spot, and it has been there for quite a while. Even the setup of the game and everything is pretty quick to get in there. The rules are pretty simple. It's very easy to teach to other people. I've taught it to quite a few people. So like I said, based on a lot of different factors, Marvel United is my #1 game in my collection that I have played of 2023. So that was the top 40 games in my collection that I have played. So the list for next year will definitely look different because there are quite a few games on this wall that I definitely want to dive into more, both on the channel itself as well as just playing for fun outside of the channel here. Those numbers, the different spots that all the different games that we've talked about will probably change next year, so definitely look out for that when we do this list again next December. Mark your calendars. The anniversary of the channel is coming up, I believe, on the 2nd. Hoping to have something out, kind of doing a channel retrospective, state of the channel kind of video on or around the 2nd, so be on the lookout for that coming up soon. And I'm not going to ramble anymore. Some things I was going to talk about, but I'd rather talk about them in that video. So we're just going to go ahead and end this one right now. Thank you for taking a look at this top 40 video. I am really hoping that it gives you a little bit of more insight into the kind of games that I enjoy and the kind of games that I would like to be playing on the channel. And again, like I said at the top of the video, if you do have any suggestions on games that you feel take the mechanics of games that we have talked about during this series and just blow them out of the water and make them more awesome than the games we've already talked about, please let me know down below what those games are in the comments. Please make sure that you like this video if you liked it. If you didn't like it, still go ahead and hit the like button. You don't even want to look at that dislike button. It is a terrible button and it goes to a terrible place. But also make sure that if you are new here that you subscribe and help to continue to support the channel. We basically for the most part, got 360 subscribers over the course of this last year, 360 plus subscribers over the last year. So I thank you guys for supporting the channel as much as you have been with your subscriptions there. So with that, I'm going to stop talking. You guys take care of yourself. Happy New Year if I don't see you before then. And thank you all, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.